There are a lot of people who watch the Game Awards, really not for the awards much at all, but more for just the reveals, the world premieres. Couldn't give you a number, but I'll bet it's a good number of them, especially because a lot of the award content ends up getting just kind of swept under the rug anyway. Who cares? We just come for the commercials. We love our video game commercials. And so, like, the last big reveal of the presentation is always, like, really, really hyped up. And at the 2025 Game Awards, the final big reveal could not have possibly been more disappointing. Because what was it? Well, like, what's the, like, if, at least personally speaking, during any given presentation, what is the variety of video game that is the least interesting to me, that the reveal of this game is going to just be the least relevant to me personally? There are plenty of genres that I'm not into, but like live service multiplayer shooter, if it's not at the bottom of my own personal interest, it's pretty far down there. So at the end of the 2025 Game Awards, when the last big crazy hyped up reveal was some like live service hero shooter that I'd never heard of before called Highguard, it was a little disappointing. I did not personally find that to be a very good final reveal, and I did hear things about how there were plenty of other people who shared that opinion with me, but I guess I didn't look into it too deeply, and I didn't realize that it was a big thing, pretty much across the board. Pretty much across the board, everybody thought that was a pretty disappointing final reveal. The reveal trailer was pretty much unanimously disliked. Various places where this trailer was posted on YouTube, the like to dislike ratios were pretty bad most of the time, in like the 90-something% range for dislikes, so almost unanimously disliked. Pretty much the entire conversation surrounding the game was just bad. It was just a bunch of people talking about how this is just another run-of-the-mill DOA slop shooter, and of course, comparisons are drawn to Concord, because that game similarly, came out clearly a high budget, some big names behind it, and obviously a lot of real hope for its success, only for it to land with a complete thud, not resonate with basically effectively anybody. And, it seemed like a project that was dead before it even could launch. And so, yeah, people drawing a lot of comparisons to Concord for Highguard. And this is despite the fact that it was built up as this big thing, this big reveal. And, don't quote me or anything. It's kind of, I guess it's more of a rumor, but like we've sort of heard like numbers of like the kinds of numbers that people have to pay for spots during the Game Awards or Summer Game Fest. But yeah, rumor is there's a really good chance that they spent a tremendous amount of money on that reveal. Because yeah, it wasn't just a slot at the Game Awards. It was the last one, the big one, and the one that Jeff Keighley had to pretend to care about and like hype up the absolute most. It sounds like they probably spent 7 figures, so that would mean at least $1 million. And we don't really know how many millions, if there were multiple millions of dollars involved. I don't know, but that is, that's enough to make a small game all by itself, just to get that like 3-4 minute trailer to play in front of all of those. I mean, a lot of people, a really big crowd. That's why it cost that much money. Game Awards being seen by more people than the stinking Super Bowl, just like 170 million or just something crazy. So like, yeah, that's a really enormous piece of marketing right there. That is a lot of eyes. Obviously not like concurrently, but like just like overall, it is many millions of people seeing this trailer. So they spent so much on it, and despite that, the response was pretty much overwhelmingly negative. So right out of the gate, from second one of this game's reveal, there was little to no confidence in it as a project, and unfortunately, that has not changed. In fact, things are kind of just getting worse. Apparently, the game is scheduled to release in 3 weeks. I did not realize it was that close to coming out, and despite that fact, there has been essentially radio silence about the game. Like no marketing, very little to no like presence on social media from, I mean, obviously people talking about the game at all. There's none except, negative discourse, but like even from the, the publishers and whatnot of the game itself, nothing. No additional trailers, no marketing push basically whatsoever, despite the fact that it's launching in 3 weeks. Apparently on Steam, the game's got only about 7,000 followers, 7,000 people that have pledged their interest in this title. And I couldn't give you numbers. I couldn't give you numbers on the like averages for other games, but it's not much. It's really, really not much. Now, here's the thing. I want to be fair here. I don't want to just dunk on the game. With Concord, it was easier because I felt that I'm sure that there were people working on Concord who cared about the game and really were trying. But I think the existence of the game in the first place, it was just such a big mistake on Sony's part, and Sony themselves already, we've talked about it endlessly. They've been putting so much of their money into these like doomed live service projects, completely neglecting their single player games and just kind of betraying everything that made them who they are in an attempt to chase after this live service pie. And it was really gross, and so it was a lot easier to dunk on Concord. Here though, I don't want to make a habit of just like, I don't like laughing at failure, like this YouTube gaming ecosystem really does reward this kind of like sensationalism, these kinds of incendiary stories. Everybody can collectively just kind of laugh at all of these failures. Like we're just gleefully awaiting the newest big huge AAA flop, and there does come a point where it feels kind of gross. I don't want to just be laughing at this game and the people who made it. And because it's not just coming from someone like Sony. I really don't know much about these people. I just know that it's being worked on by a lot of the people who did Apex Legends and Titanfall. So like a lot of really good developers behind this thing. And as with Concord, I am sure that maybe even more so than Concord. I don't know. I shouldn't come to any conclusions like that. But like I'm sure there are people who care about this game. For all I know, even at the very, very top, whoever was in charge of this game and getting it made, they were doing something that they wanted to do. They just wanted to make a really good live service hero shooter multiplayer game. Like they wanted to play to their strengths. They had experience with Titanfall and Apex Legends, and they were like, all right, well now I'm separated from those studios and publishers, and I just want to take that expertise. This is a lot of expertise that they have in creating this kind of game, but let's do our own. Let's do our own game and make it as good as we can. And for all we know, it's a great game. That's the thing. We don't know how this game is gonna play. Nobody has played it. I kind of thought they would have done a beta or something by now, but no, apparently not. There has been no demo, there's been no beta, there's been nothing. Nobody has played Highguard yet. For all we know, it's a really good game. We're not sure. And like I'll completely admit, like, yeah, I grumbled at the announcement trailer, but like, hold it up against Concord, I think Highguard looks 10 times better. It still doesn't look great, but like there's at least a little bit more creativity in there. Okay, you're like riding these mounts. That's kind of cool. It's like, all right, it's got more of like a fantasy element. That's, you know, the destructible environments. It's at least something, you know. And it didn't have like a cringy Marvel humor cinematic cutscene, because that really killed Concord for me. So like, I don't know. Maybe it's even a good game. Maybe they really did put their whole hearts in there, and the end product is gonna be really great. Maybe we're being a little bit unfair. And also, in their defense, when you start production on a game, that's the problem with game development just taking longer and longer and longer, is it just gets so hard to course correct. It becomes basically impossible to course correct past a certain point. You cannot predict where the industry is going to go. You know, my mind always returns to Days Gone. You know, when they started development on Days Gone, open world games were like, you know, they were very popular, but like we were already starting to get like a little bit tired of them. So they were probably like, all right, people are getting a little bit tired of open world games, but it's fine. We're still going to do ours, and we're going to do it as well as we can. They could not have predicted that by the time Days Gone came out, there was just nothing about it that really set it apart from other games. Not saying Days Gone is a bad game or anything, but like that is how the market kind of received it. And so, you know, ultimately, I don't know if it ended up being somewhat of a success, and I know they did like a remaster at some point, but for the most part, it did not perform the way that Sony wanted it to. It kind of, you know, as far as like the discourse went, it kind of landed with a thud. It was a game that did not drum up a lot of interest. And so here, maybe they couldn't quite have predicted how sick of these live service games that we would have become by 2025. You know, like it's been a thing for a while. Just the whole like AAA multiplayer slot machine, you know, it's been a problem for a while, but like they've probably been working on this game for a number of years. They could not have predicted how just fed up we would become with these kinds of games, especially with these big companies just producing so many. There are so many. Every time a new one gets announced, it gets sillier and sillier and sillier. And more than anything, they could not have predicted Concord. Concord, I think the failure of Concord, like we've had plenty of AAA failures over the years, but I think Concord was notable. It was maybe even the biggest flop in video game history as far as like how much money was put into it and how immediately it failed. And a really big problem with multiplayer games is it all just comes down to whether or not like a bunch of people play it. And people are going to play it if there is some sort of hype for it. You know, like the internet, it is a fickle beast. The reception to a game's reveal, it kind of means everything. Just how people are talking about a game, it's basically the most important thing, because that's how you're going to get people to actually be interested in your game, especially in a landscape that is completely oversaturated, completely flooded with these kinds of games. You have to give everyone a reason to play it. And like, maybe we're not being fair. Again, could be a great game. Maybe this isn't fair at all. Maybe everyone should try it out. Maybe it deserves to be the next big hit. But there is no fair in this industry. There's no fair in any industry. It really just comes down to how many people are convinced. And it seems that here, no one's convinced. Not enough people are convinced. The gaming culture has become so reactionary, so like we're so prepared to reject a game. You know, we're very, very prepared to reject a game for any reason. And I'm not even saying that's necessarily wrong. You know, like this is a complicated thing. And because the industry is so flooded, like, yeah, I think people have every right to just be like, like, nope, I'm not doing this. That's another one of those games. And you know what? We just don't want it. And yeah, again, like they couldn't know that Concord was going to happen. Concord happened, and it was such a miserable, embarrassing failure. But then that itself, like the existence and the failure of that game, cemented itself into the gaming discourse in such a way that now any big AAA multiplayer games as a service that comes out, and if it's disappointing in any way, if we have any reason to believe this is just going to be another Concord, we are going to file it into the Concord file. And that, of course, is going to dramatically hurt a game. In fact, it's probably dead. We cannot really come to any solid conclusions. We don't know exactly what their plans are. But the fact that they haven't said anything since that reveal, and again, game comes out in 3 weeks, and they've not said anything, there is a really good chance that the game literally is dead already. And that seems ridiculous. It really does seem ridiculous. You spent so long on this game. These people have probably just been working for years and years on this game. If you could spend $1 or more millions of dollars just on marketing a single short trailer, I can't even imagine what you spent on the game itself. Concord, hundreds of millions of dollars allegedly. So like, yeah, these games are very expensive to make. So it seems silly that the bad reception to one trailer would lead them to just give up completely. But the thing is, the game industry is becoming more and more risk averse. They are taking fewer risks, and that's why they are doing so much of this trend chasing. But they are also starting to recognize, they're starting to more accurately spot failures. Because they know that even just launching a game, even trying to fix a game, is very, very costly, especially a live service game. They take a lot of money to run, a lot of money to maintain. Marketing, obviously, takes a lot of money. So when Concord failed so dramatically so early on, Sony was like, maybe we'll try to make it free to play, maybe we'll fix it. But then I imagine they ran the numbers and they were just like, no, we're not gonna just spend a bunch of money spinning our wheels, trying to patch up a sinking ship. The thing is already 3/4 sunk. So they just cut and run. And the same might happen here. Like if the reception was kind of mixed, maybe they would want to launch the game and see if they, let's just get it in front of people. But I don't know. I think there may be a chance that like if everyone has already written off the game, there's basically no interest. That's the thing. There is little to no interest in this game. It's not just a bunch of people bad-mouthing it. That wouldn't be so bad if you also had a lot of people who had followed the game on Steam, wish-listed, positive press, but there isn't. There's only the bad-mouthing, and then there's no interest at all. So like, yeah, technically the game could surprise us, especially if it is good, and they could just get it in front of people. That's why I imagine you probably at least want to try, at least try to get it in front of people. At least do a beta or something. Because if there's going to be a way to turn things around, then that's it. But the problem with these games, they're so expensive. And if there are any investors involved, they might just be like, no, the writing's on the wall. This one's dead. Like, it's silly to work on a game for that long and then reveal a single trailer, and then just be like, nope, that's it. Pull the plug. Like, shut it down, everybody. We're done. But at the same time, like, we are seeing that happen. That is how this industry, it's what this industry has become. If people are not interested in your game, they will not play it. And if they will not play it, then your game, your multiplayer game, is completely worthless. So we just kind of have to wait and see what happens. And again, I find all of this very interesting, and I know I did. I did dunk on Concord a lot. I did a lot of videos about it. It doesn't feel as fun, this time it's not as like, haha, I told you so. I mean, really it is an I told you so situation. Nobody, I think across the board, everybody should just pull the plug on these kinds of games because it's just becoming not worth it. I know that like if a live service game catches on, then it makes trillions of dollars, and that's why they keep just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. I do get that, but like there does reach a point when it's just like I can't spend $500 million on a game if there's just like a 9 out of 10 chance that it's just gonna, everyone's just gonna like immediately write it off the second we put out a trailer. It's just like, when does that stop becoming worth it, even for the occasional huge success? So So yeah, again, in their slight defense, they couldn't have possibly known where we would be at this time when they started development. But then also, like, okay, you want to keep doing that? You want to keep making these big, expensive live service games? And that's what you're doing. Like, you know what you're doing. You did it on purpose, and this is how it turned out. So, like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how many of these failures we need to see before people get the message that this is maybe not worth trying as much. So yeah, is Highguard the next Concord? Will it be DOA? Will they cancel it entirely and not even launch it? That would be unprecedented. That would be, like, Concord was already an unprecedented failure, but at least it hit shelves. At least they tried. If they canceled a game this big after spending that much on it and spending that much for marketing and canceled it after the reception to a single trailer, that would be, I can't even talk about it. I have to just wait and see what happens, because that would be absolutely nuts.